And we're talking to Leo Sayer about something that happened a long, long time ago and is only surfacing today. Bit of a hidden treasure, Leo, the 1992 album with all songs from 3 decades ago for you.
Yeah, 1992 was the year that it was made, and actually into 1994, one of the tracks. But over this period, a strange period in my life when I really couldn't get anything happening for me in the UK. I suppose we were in the time of Stock Aitken Waterman, the boy bands, a lot of people starting to work with, loops and dance music and everything like that. And here's old-fashioned Leo trying to get a record deal in a new world. And it wasn't happening for me. So, but I was pretty I was touring. I think came to Australia that year, came to South Africa that year, came to America and Canada, and I had enough money to buy a studio, to buy a building or lease a building, buy a load of equipment and build a studio. So that's what I did, and I thought, okay, I'm going to really learn to make records because I've always sat there, behind the console, behind the guy who's running the console, and every time you put your hand out to touch a fader, they go, get off, So I was kind of really keen to construct records, and that's what I did with this. I started to record, and I know I sent you an earlier version of this with loads of tracks on, but we kind of pared it down now to 8, so that we could get onto one piece of vinyl. But it was a wonderful time, and incredibly, some of the songs from that time have already found their way onto other albums like Selfie and Voice in My Head and they've and Restless Years as well. So songs that I wrote and recorded in that time got re-recorded for those albums. But in this case, I picked up the tapes out of a box, amazingly, early last year, and put on the DAT and thought, I don't have to do anything with this. A bit of editing, bit of leveling up. There are a few little glitches which you get on DAT tapes where suddenly something pops out or over records or something. But I managed to edit all of those out, and with the great help of my engineer John Hudson up in Queensland, the ex-Mayfair guy, he did a beautiful job in mastering it all because we do it all in house now, and it just, I think it sounded good, and I thought, well, why didn't I play this? I didn't know, you can't tell something you've done from so long ago. Will it still be relevant? So I played it to the record company, played it to a few friends. I sent you a copy, and the feedback I got was, well, you should put this out, So yeah, there it is.
Well, 1992 in particular has been narrowed down to 8 songs. We'll talk about each one of those 8 songs. I think we get an insight into where your head was around 1992 as well. Particularly, let's jump into the first one, Was I Blue? First line, New York, I just woke up. Man, I love this place. So,
well, yeah, it's kind of written in retrospect to that first tour that I did. Actually, maybe the second tour, because I'm saying I'd be better off in the southern states down in New Orleans, because basically we used to get a warmer reception in the South, for some reason. Atlanta, New Orleans, Memphis, those kind of places really warmed to Leo Sayer when I first went over there. Whereas New York was a harder nut to crack, as it should be, because it's a much more sophisticated audience. So, you wouldn't get the instant kind of, yeah, come on, Leo, reaction that you got from the South. And this same thing could be prevalent in Australia. I mean, look at the reaction you'll get in Adelaide, say, compared to Melbourne. Melbourne people being pretty cool, Adelaide people going, give me some music. So it's you get that everywhere. The same in the UK. When I go to Scotland, they go absolutely apeshit mad. And in London, they're kind of impress me. So it's always like that. But this was me waking up one morning, recollecting New York and the whole thing being bigger than me. And I was feeling like I was feeling like I was channeling Bob Dylan first coming into town in an old pair of jeans with his Woody Guthrie kind of mentality, thinking everything's a little bit too fast, you know, feeling as cold as a coffee cup, the egg upon my face,
Mm.
so it's kind of small as the coffee cup, the egg on my face, you're talking about being in this new vast world, and maybe there's a little bit of fame in there as well, and the stardom, and all of those kind of things you're writing about, and then I think it goes into the last verses, and it's so anybody who helped me then, thanks, I wish you luck. Any passing truck, anybody who kind of like gave me a leap up, you're saying thanks. So you're looking back at those times and being incredibly grateful for that leg up that you got.
Well, 1992, you'd been incredibly famous and successful for over 20
Mm.
years at that point. We get to the next song, Wonderworld, which I think is also going to be the single off
Yeah,
this
that's
album.
right. We
Yeah. Here on the hill where dreams become real, you look down at the lights, but they give you no thrill. You're questioning that incredible fame, aren't you?
It's Hollywood as well. I mean, it's a reaction to the bullshit of Hollywood. Hollywood was kind of a place where they made and break you in a second. There were so many people kind of always, talking, "Hey, I've got a great plot for a movie, man." You'd meet them in the Chateau Marmont or the Beverly Hills Hotel Polo Lounge, and "Hey, listen to this, man. I'm just going over to see, Sam Zelnick over there, and I'm gonna." Playing can I try it out on you? Yeah, you try out a pitch on somebody and you just know it's going to fail. So it was a very cruel town. And when I lived there, I love the ideas. The rain falls like soup and the palm trees will drown. In other words, everything is kind of fated. Whatever looks great on the surface is fragile and will fall over in a second because it's like a movie set, with those Hollywood lots with the facade on the front and the piece. When you go around the back, there's pieces of wood holding up just the facade. There is no house. It's just that.
Mm.
And I felt that when I was there. I mean, I had a fabulous success in Hollywood, in Beverly Hills and in Los Angeles, but at the same time, it was a cruel place. And it was like a stepladder, where basically you see the people on the top and they're the success. And then you kind of fall down the ladder and you meet all the people that are struggling to get back up again. So it is like it's a strange process living there and experiencing, as I experienced both sides of fame. I experienced great days, and then at the end of it, when I had to leave, I couldn't get arrested. So it's written about that. There was a movie, I think, with I believe it was the same. It was an actor playing a tramp who's in kind of like lives in somebody's house, a Beverly Hills mansion.
Mm.
He's found in the garden. And I felt like that kind of guy sometimes, and that influence is in the song, that kind of image is very much there. But there's a lot of cruel non sequiturs in there, with a printer in the front and a shredder in the back, So it's like, somebody's just printed out a script, and then the guy in a Cadillac has he prints it out and reads it and then puts it in the shredder. So it's kind of like every idea gets trashed. I mean, in some ways, I loved Hollywood, but at the same times, I hated it, and I put it all into that song.
You're not the only artist that talks about sort of being out
Mm.
of favor around 1992. I remember talking to John Bon Jovi once, and he was talking about
Yeah,
in 1992, you couldn't give Bon Jovi away in the United States because
yeah,
of Pearl
yeah,
Jam,
yeah.
because of Soundgarden, because of Nirvana. All these grunge bands had come along, and Bon Jovi, who had only really been big for about 5, 6 years at that point, suddenly sounded dated when compared to this new sound that was coming around. So you weren't the
Yeah.
only one feeling that at that point.
No, no, and look back to songwriters like Albert Hammond, writes that incredible songs. It Never Rains in Southern California. He used to kind of traipse up and down the street, you know, like no money, but trying to sell his songs because he knew that they were good songs, but trying to get just a leg in the door. And that song's all about that. It never rains in California, but man, it pours. It
Yeah.
pours. And so, all of those classic things. I remember Lindsey Buckingham telling me how he and Stevie were trying to get record deals before they bumped into, Mick Fleetwood and Fleetwood Mac, and it all happened for them. Some of the things they had to go through, and the things that Stevie got offered, being a pretty girl, well, maybe, if you wear a more exciting top, we could give you a record deal. It was full of that kind of bullshit, and so I hope that that's all in the song. It's packed into the song. The song, interestingly as well, has got very interesting chord changes where it keeps shifting, it keeps moving on. It's like restless, and I tried to get that atmosphere over. At the end, you're singing, "Got to keep on moving, got to keep on moving."
Mm.
Because that's the only way to deal with it, is to look for tomorrow. And it's a city of tomorrow that promises always greater things tomorrow, but never rarely delivers. Let's put it like that.
On Take a Walk with Me, I guess, there's a bit of that storyline still going. Many here have blown their chances, see them stranded on the ground. But you
Yeah.
also got another line in there: "Time has come and the moment's right to leave." Were you sort of predicting your move down to Australia at that point?
I composed it at a time when all of the Sarajevo, Bosnia was happening.
Hmm.
And I was actually thinking of a refugee. And I had a wonderful, wonderful friend, still have, a lovely Somalian girl whose husband was English and worked for UN. And he helped her escape from Somalia when all the rebels and the terrible things were going on there, like civil war and everything. And I had a horrendous story how they got out. God, they got out there by the skin of their teeth. And then they had to cross border after border after border, ended up in Scotland. And she actually became an MP, and she's a very important person there now. And she helps a lot of young kids, African kids who kind of like ended up in Scotland. But I was thinking of her story, and I was thinking where you're with someone and you're entreating them. It could be Gaza, it could be Ukraine. Like the city's dying. Nothing grows in here. Can't you see? Seize this moment, take this chance and leave, and I'll look after you. This promising that whatever happens, I'll never let you down. So you're taking someone with you, taking them out of some hellhole, and it could be Gaza, yeah. Taking them to another place. So it's got a feeling. I mean, always love the subject of refugees and asylum seekers. I've always been, fascinated in people who give up everything to leave for a better life, or maybe survival. The fact that they might just live rather than being killed where they are. So it's a very serious song in some ways. It's kind of taking somebody out of their situation and maybe, without it sounding too big, saving them.
The song Heaven also has very serious connotations to it. I'm trying to figure out what drives the world. Is it the gun or the power of the words?
Yeah.
I mean, that is as relevant then, when we were sort of coming out of the Reagan era, to what it is now, when, potentially with where the US is heading, we may be seeing those lyrics come to life all over again.
I think that's what suddenly made, when I played these songs again, off the DAT, and I hadn't heard them properly. I had them on a rough old cassette, but when I played them off the DAT, they came alive in that way. I thought, hang on, they're suddenly amazingly current in some ways. So there's a lot of those. There's this background vocal in there that is really in the back. The world is watching. The world is waiting. Come show us a sign. Come show us a sign. Because all religions are waiting for the moment that God reappears or he comes down. He actually manifests himself. And I was fascinated in religion at the time because, I grew up as a good Catholic boy. I'm not such a good Catholic boy any longer, but I strayed very much. And I used to call myself an atheist. I don't know if I feel like that now. I feel that I'm gaining faith again in a funny kind of way. I wouldn't exactly kind of latch it onto one religion over another. You know what I mean? But I think it's important to believe in something bigger than ourselves.
Mm.
And I was fascinated with the idea that we ignore heaven, and yet heaven is so reachable. We only have to reach out and believe. and then suddenly life makes sense. It's like being in love, isn't it? It's the same thing. If you're in love, then everything is wonderful. Everything has a reason and everything has a place. And suddenly there's a syncopatic kind of, harmony of the universe.
Yeah.
So I enjoy this wine. I enjoy this meal. I enjoy this house. I enjoy this road I'm walking in because I'm in love.
Mm.
So I think that if we allow ourselves to let, some kind of heaven in, we can kind of change things in a very bleak landscape of what modern life is, or possibly is, if we let it get to us, And so heaven is a song of hope.
Start a fire. I dreamed one day I'm
Yeah.
going to take myself away to a faraway land. And eventually you
Australia.
did. You ended here.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. Before I leave this place, I'm going to take I'm going to take a stand. Yeah, I want to start a fire. It's a Guy Fawkes. It's
Mm.
Guy Fawkes in the modern century. It's also all revolutionaries and maybe the importance of, although it's very frowned on now by every government, they're trying to control us. The important point of revolt and objection. You really have to take a stand. We're hungry, we're angry, we've been sold. Too many cooks, too many thieves. So we've been told we're not going to take this. We're not going to stand for this. Tonight we're taking over. Come on, let's start a fire. The whole place, torch it, burn it, raise it to the ground,
Mm.
change things. It doesn't mean actually set things. It doesn't mean arson. It just
Yeah.
means change. And I'm going to sing this song on the UK tour, and I'm sure I'm going to get bollocked for it. There's even a line about God.
I forgot about Jesus. Seems he forgot about me. Too busy fishing in the deep blue sea. So there's that.
Yeah.
There's that ex-Catholic, fallen Catholic coming out.
Yes, and maybe the cynicism about, the way that religions sell themselves,
Mm.
think of evangelists in America and all of this kind of like, I must get more souls. So he forgets about the people who really need him the most. That's
Mm.
what I was trying. It wasn't about me. It's about, anyone who's because he says in the song, he's a zero. He's just another zero hanging off the wall. He's not an important person. He's been forgotten. He's been left out, and he feels, oh God, I forgot about Jesus. But then, yeah, hang on, he forgot about me. What has he done for me? So it's a kind of a song of yeah, being sort of like disdained, being thrown aside. Maybe it's a song of homeless people or forgotten people, who kind of like only have a chance to put up a placard and object and be, want to start a revolution.
Mm.
And I'm sure, just like John Lennon and Dylan and many people like me, they've all written songs like that of want to start something up and want to kind of, yeah, start a fire.
It always amazes me that artists, when they're songwriting in their 20s or even their late teens, the love songs come really easy to them. Once you get into your 40s, the relationship songs start taking on a different storyline. And I see in Joanna, we're seeing that storyline about sort of the end of a relationship, I guess.
Well, that was a true story about a girl that I really loved, fancied like mad, a Danish girl. And she was in love with a guy who was a shooter. He shot arrows. So you see the bows and arrows are hanging on the wall. And I chose to sing it in a narration kind of style. So it's kind of almost like it's spoken rather than sung. It's kind of rapped, if you like. But it was kind of, when you see someone blow you a kiss, as you're standing by a car door, he kind of is signal that it's over. It's like someone far away almost. So that's in the song. That's kind of moment when instead of a hug, you just get a kind of hello, or goodbye. And so, yeah, there's a certain amount of rejection, but it's also that person, amazingly, I'm still friends with, Joanna.
Does she
She's
know
in
about the
Denmark.
song?
She knows all about it and she cries every time she hears it. So, because we had a very special bond. And she was the girl that introduced me to the studio in Denmark where I made Voice in My Head.
Mm.
I met her in London and we became really good friends. We were pals. She actually was the girl, the shop girl at a lighting store where I bought all my lights for my studio, and we got talking, and I was fascinated in Denmark because I had a lot of friends over there, and she ended up making a country record, and I ended up playing harmonica on it, and that's how I found the studio. So the owner of the studio, Henning, then turned around to me and said, "Hey, you should come out and make a record." And I said, "I'd love to, but I can't afford to." And he said, "Okay, I'll give you 60 days free. Just come over, make the record." And that was a revelation. I mean, that was the first proper commercial record. Maybe this was just before, but that was the first commercial record that I'd made myself completely, as it were, produced and written and arranged, and he gave me that leg up, and Joe as well, so very important people in my life. I debated whether to put this on, but I asked Joe's permission, and she said, "Please, please put it on." So it's there, but there's some lovely lines. I'm very proud of the last line. Remember what the driver said: "What's important's up ahead. What's behind's already dead, dead and gone." And it's true. We have to look, we have to move on. You've got to park some things in your life, however hard that was. And to a certain extent, I really love this girl. I've really fallen for her, but I knew our lives were different. Our destinies were different.
When we get to the next song, Rainbow's End,
Yeah.
another relationship song?
And no, a fiction, total fiction. I just read an amazing book which had a love story, and it came from this love story: a girl who lived up on the hill and a boy who lived on the bottom of the hill, who adored the girl on the top of the hill and used to go up and see her. And they had a relation. I mean, it's a similar relationship to my song "The Dancer," that on the first album, Silverbird, where I admired this beautiful girl who was an amazing dancer who went off to the south of France, fell out of a go-go cage and was killed. And I had to kind of live with that. And there was a lot of, and I knew the family and everything. It was a huge tragedy, but I wrote about it because I felt that was the only cathartic way to exercise my affection for her out of my life. Sometimes you've got to write it, but you've got to write it out of your soul. And Rainbow's End was kind of maybe inspired by that old song, but here was a story that I thought was amazing. In the book, a lightning strike hits the house, destroys everything, and the girl is lying there, and he's trying to kind of. This is a very, again, faith is in here. He's talking about God when he says, "What you going to do? Will you be my friend? Are you playing for keeps real this time, or just pretend?" So that's God, isn't it? And that's religion. It sparks. Are we just pretending? Is this all a guise? That if we say our prayers and say our confessions, we'll get to heaven? Is it a device? So he's talking about a device, but then when he speaks to her, she says to him, "Will you be my friend? Are you playing for keep real this time, or just pretend?" And it's very moving when your own beliefs get thrown back at you. And of course, she goes, and he's kind of trying to make sense of it all. That this whirlwind romance has fallen apart. And I must give a tribute to an amazing guitarist that I had on this whole project, a guy called Les Davidson, whose son is now one of the senior engineers at Abbey Road in London, EMI's Abbey Road. And he was an incredible guitarist, and I'd throw ideas at him and he'd just come up with brilliant stuff, and some of his playing in these tracks was inspiring me to sing even better. You know what I mean? So sometimes when you've got a foil like that, as it were, someone to work off, bounce off. And I think that happens in this song, Rainbow's End. So there's a lot of lyrical points in these songs, but there's also a lot of, I was discovering in ways, without anybody telling me what to do, how to counteract with the musicians I was working with. Great drummer as well in it, who, when we didn't actually have him playing real drums, he'd program all the drums. Steve Jackson, still a great friend of mine from that band, The Mechanics, that often I used to work with in the 80s. So he's still a mate, and he just had a lovely sense of, he loves songs. So he was a song drummer, if you know, like Levon Helm or even Mark Kennedy, who plays with me, you know, great Australian.
Mm.
They play songs. If you play them a song, they'll say, "Oh God, I love that." They're really into the song. They're not just into being a drummer, you know.
Mm.
And that was great. So I had wonderful people with me.
This is mainly you on most instruments, isn't it? With
Mm,
a couple
mm.
of other guys brought in from time to time.
Yeah, with the studio I'd built, I really purposefully, I even took a computer course, and it started off. I mean, it's called Logic Audio now, Logic X as they call it, which is actually almost owned by Apple. It is owned by Apple actually. They bought the company, but in the early days there were kind of like early versions of that, and I had a couple of mates who were musicians who really got me into, you know, hey, come on, Leo, you could make records. You know, you could do this. So they taught me how to kind of manipulate a few things around on the. I could basically get enough around the keyboard that I could put down the basic chords. And then I found that I could play the solo parts if I played them a little bit at a time, you know, because it's a little bit like typing. I mean, I'm a three-finger typist.
Mm.
So, you know, writing a book with three fingers is not easy, but it's possible, you know, and with that kind of basic knowledge, I found that I could map out the songs because I was writing them all in my head and then kind of like converting them to keyboard and computer.
Mm.
But luckily I had some wonderful people around me. I had a great live engineer, John Halk, another guy who was helping me build the studio, Colin Hanna, and those guys became my engineers. So I could actually kind of say, "Hey, go and record," and I pad something down very quickly. So I had some good assistants, you know, and I built the studio. It was in the top floor of a building on a canal in Notting Hill in London called Canalot, and there were quite a few people that had studios up there. And I took on 2,000 feet, and I had some theatre builders build me a control room in the middle of it. So they basically came overnight. I think it cost about £10,000 or something like that. And literally, they started at 6 o'clock at night, and by dawn, the whole thing was built.
Wow.
Windows in it, floating floor, you know, everything, new ceiling, you know, everything, sort of stands, even for the vocal booth, everything. They did the whole lot. Incredible. And they're all young chippies, you know, Irish theatre guys, the guys that zip up sets, you know, and it was really exciting watching them do it. And suddenly I had a studio that I could really use. The back room I put drums in, and Steve came and played his drums there. And, you know, we were on the roof, so we had a glass roof above us. So the sound actually from the glass roof was really good. That kind of helped the sound in the big live area that we had. And yeah, and it was just like a learning curve all the time, you know, making this. It was exciting. We had a great bass player as well, John Mackenzie, who sadly has gone now. He died. He was the bass player for the Pretenders for many
Oh.
years.
Mm.
And you know, a really lovely black guy. His dad was a very famous player at the Savoy Hotel, pianist,
Mm.
you know, playing the cocktail bar, and a very famous man. And his son toured with me for years. So yeah, we had great musicians, you know, who just join in and do things. They all supported my project, which was so lovely, where I was kind of probably talking them out of work. You know, it's like they should be the ones playing, and they all supported me, and they said, "No, go for it, Leo. It's
Yeah.
great." So it was a good time.
Well, it gave you a good grounding for years later when you did the Selfie album, I guess.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. It was that kind of and voice in my head as well, going to Denmark, bringing musicians over and being the captain all of a sudden, and kind of, you know, having to kind of justify that role every day by always coming up with ideas and things. It's a big pressure being. I understood how difficult it is to be a producer. And it gave me a new admiration for people like Richard Perry and Arif Mardin and all of those great, and Alan Tarney and Russ Ballard and all those great stylists that I work with, even Adam Faith and David Courtney. It's a big responsibility to keep, you know, to keep the soup hot, as it were, because basically you've got guys, you know, hanging around in a studio, and you've got to keep them stimulated. And how do you do that? You know, because there are always dull moments. So, hey guys, why don't we try this? You might actually ask the bass player to play, you know, have you got a fretless bass? Play this part on fretless bass, knowing that you're not going to use it, but trying to stimulate everybody into thinking there's still. And while he's doing that and thinking, oh, I'm going to trash this, you're already thinking of the next idea you've got to do. So, you know, it's a bit of manipulation being a producer. I learned that very quickly. And you know, in doing this album, 1992, I had to persuade people to play out of their socks and you know, play really, give me 100,000,000%. And luckily, with guys like Les and Steve and John and all those guys, you know, around me, they all did. You know, it was good.
Well, we've got one final song to talk about. And I love how this album has themes that go through it. And one of those themes is about fame. On stage, I was living the life, scaling the heights, never wondering why on stage. If there was room at the top, I was going non-stop round the clock on stage. So it sort of harks back to what we were talking about with Wonderworld and Take a Walk with Me.
I think the story of my career is in this song, because it's all about, you know, and about the time of I was making this record, they had put me in the Where Are They Now? You know, because it is, you know, I played the end of a field. I played a box on wheels. I played for a meal in the Where Are They Now? Where are they now? Because, you know, you see those articles on the sort of fame side of the internet, and it says, whatever happened to Leo Sayer? You know, and it's like, well, not much really. He's, you know, it all fell away. You know, and they like to kind of do those articles. What's he worth now? Oh no, he's broke. You know, but I love those kind of things. It's kind of funny. So you're poking fun at the very negative things that are thrown at you. Almost, you know, you're echoing them, and I kind of found that fun to write about. You know, but there are serious sides to a career, and it's all there in the song. One line I was trying to remember, I've got it written down there. You never forget the heartbeat and sweat. You get your destiny set on stage. Because there, it's like another world on there. I mean, I always say to people, they always say, well, where do you live? And I said, well, between the drum riser and the front of the stage, you know, because that's the only place that I can think that I'm really at home. The rest of the time is just like treading water. It's just like until that moment. But you know, you remember all those moments. You know, I see the crowd coming in as the show begins. I thought I heard myself singing out, "Where are they now? Where are they now? Friends that I lost and friends that I cost. Oh, the gain and the loss. Where are they now? Where are they now?" Because you think of all the mistakes you made, how you were rude to people, how you were obnoxious, and how you were demanding, and all of that stuff. But then the end of the song is, all that glitters ain't gold. Just be true to your soul. Life ain't all rock and roll. And it's not, you know, there's more, always more than this business, this industry.
It's incredible, these songs from 1992. They may have gone unnoticed had you released them in 1992, but to me, they have a lot more relevance now.
Thank you. Thank you. No, they certainly would have been. You know, I actually did play them to people and they said, yeah, you didn't get to the chorus soon enough, or yeah, no, I don't hear it. You know, I mean, I had so many rejections. It's kind of fun, but I love rejection. You know, I've always been underestimated and I like being underestimated. It's nice to not prove them wrong, but, you know, prove that, yeah, you have some substance when you've been written off, you know, so it's all good. It's like, what's that saying? Revenge is a dish best eaten cold. You know? and and also, you know, I've always written in retrospect. I mean, now I'm finding that I'm going back over my catalogue and some songs that have never come out, like these, and rebirthing them, you know, and reenacting them. I don't think I've actually written a new song now since COVID. Since, you know, My City in Lockdown that you played quite a lot, I know. I haven't written a new song since then, because basically there's still stuff from the past that needs digging up and going out there and being reappraised and being reworked and all of those things. And I think that there's plenty in there still, you know, that I'm playing catch up, basically. You know, my whole life has been playing catch up, but I don't mind that because look at Thunder in My Heart, becoming a number one with Mech, and in 1977, when we made that, we knew we had something brilliant, but couldn't get anybody excited. It didn't really tip the scales on radio and things like that. So when Mech rediscovered it, thank God, in 2000, after 1977, originally 2006, it came out. It was just like, wow, a song can live again, and in retrospect can be relevant again.
Yeah, well, an artist can live again. You're living again at the Meredith Music Festival, which is pretty.
Oh no,
cool
that's
stuff.
true. That's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we're playing in there with a lot of kind of younger bands. Some of them have got pretty much careers ahead of them, but some of them, of course, are really on that precipice of just crossing over to being relevant and important and bringing their fans with them. So it's going to be an interesting experience, me at the other end of the scale, as it were. And I know some of the bands there as well that became other bands, so it's interesting.
1992, what a great album. Thank you for sharing the story with us today at Noise11.
Yeah, love you and leave you. All the best. Cheers, buddy.